I wanted to kind of include you on a conversation I had with my uncle regarding drones. We have different stances on it, and he engaged me in this conversation after discussing the hunger strikes at Guantanamo. And, I basically took the stance that it's terrible and we're not making any friends by bombing and killing civilians and women and children. And he came out with something that I haven't really heard before, and I was kind of wondering what you thought of it. He said that I was kind of imposing my American feelings about it, like, of course, I would be upset, but that such behavior would cause them to kind of fear and respect us more, which just blew my mind. Of course, he was in the IDF when he met my aunt, so maybe that has something to do with it, but I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts were on that.
I mean, I think that on some level, let me put it this way. That is something that you hear in terms of the way that nations interact. There is some notion out there, and, I'm not savvy enough, I think, in terms of international relations, that I can say whether or not there are certain leaders in different parts of the world that respond more to strength. I mean, that's what we often hear, right? That that these leaders respond more to strength than they do to compromise. I don't know if that's true or not. I can tell you that the polling of individual Pakistanis, okay, early on in the drone campaign, there was some data to suggest that Pakistani civilians appreciated some of the attacks because it was taking out some people who were causing them problems, tribal leaders who were in some way oppressing local Pakistani populations. That is long gone, long since gone. And if your uncle was right, then we would see polling from the Pakistani people that appreciated. But in fact, that's not the case. I mean, your uncle there, I think, is buying into, some of which I think is arguably racist interpretations of how other governments act. I mean, we sometimes hear, like, North Korea, they'll do these tests and they want to see how they're testing to see what will allow them to get away with, and they want to see a strong response, or they don't want to see a strong response, or they'll respect the strong response more. That may be the case when you're talking about leaders, but individuals, citizens. We know that there has been a lot of both data and anecdotal evidence and reporting that the Pakistani people, or any of the people, whether it's in Yemen or Pakistan or Afghanistan, I mean, you can simply look at what Karzai's, has to do basically to maintain some type of relations with the United States, because people don't like it when you bomb their wedding party. People don't like it. There was a report out just this week from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism that purportedly has a Pakistani government document that shows that over the course of a 3-year period from 2006 to 2009, there were 746 people listed as killed by the drone strikes. At least 147 of them are clearly stated to be civilian victims. 94 of those are said to be children. The idea that Pakistanis would have no problem with their children being blown up because they would appreciate the strength of the United States could only be, I think, based on some form of racism. I just don't believe there is any society where people are happy to have their children killed in drone strikes, that they appreciate the strength and respect the strength that's involved in that.
That's pretty much the stance that I took. But
yeah,
I'm talking to a veteran of the Israeli army, so I'm sure that his perspective on that whole region is pretty skewed. So.
I think so. And, look, there may be something to the idea that that leadership, in the Game of Thrones, opponents will appreciate strength. But the idea that civilians appreciate, walk away with that is fantastical. And there's absolutely no data to show that. And there's data, if you would listen to data, there's data to show that that's wrong. I mean, you can pull up a lot of polling of the Pakistani people and their perception of this. Same with the Yemenis, and there's plenty of reporting on it. So I think your uncle maybe is trying to justify who knows what, or is simply a product of how he's been propagandized.